Vicky, and once again, welcome to the discussion. And well, we're discussing today the thing that we never thought will happen, but finally it has happened. That finally, U.S. military presence in Afghanistan is over now. Like after 20 years, the last C-17 it flew away from the Kabul airport. I think well asked before what the deadline was given by President Joe Biden, and now once again, the situation is back to the same, back to square one in Afghanistan. 20 years after the US left, 20 years ago, or when in 2001 they landed in Afghanistan, wanted to wipe out Al Qaeda, took over lots of parts of Afghanistan, nearly wiped out Taliban. Now Taliban is once again back in power. So all those 20 years went down the drain for US.
Say that, weakening of Al-Qaeda, yeah, that has actually succeeded. But whether the very fact that, when they came into Afghanistan in the early 2000s, at that time, the whole intention was, it was under the premise that, Osama bin Laden was hiding out there and they wanted to get the man who masterminded the 9/11 attack. But it was also at that time, it was the Taliban which was, providing a very safe haven for the Al-Qaeda. Okay. So in terms of, the Al-Qaeda being weakened, in terms of strength, yes, the war has been very successful. But the fact that, the same Taliban which nurtured the Al-Qaeda or, provided a safe haven is back to rule the country, I say that would be a real failure, actually.
Right, and when we talk about Al Qaeda, so like of course Osama bin Laden is not there, but his son is still there. He is taking, he is there. He is taking part in what small fraction of Al Qaeda is there. So can we see a resurgence of Al Qaeda once again in the region?
See, you cannot rule it out, but I don't see any resurgence happening, in the near future. Considering the line, or rather the talks that President Donald Trump had with the Taliban, before the withdrawals happened. He was very clear that, that they shall not provide a safe haven to, terrorists who are, terror groups, who tend to attack Americans and American assets. That is, both Al-Qaeda as well as the Islamic State. Okay, so that was the deal. So I don't see them, coming back into the picture immediately, because the one more thing, Akash, over the years, there was also another development which happened in Afghanistan, and that was the birth of the Al Qaeda in the subcontinent. Which is very focused only on this part. And I mean, it had a chief, one person called as Asim Umar, who must have heard that he had a, he originally hailed from Uttar Pradesh, actually. It is not really, taken off or, got the kind of traction it has, it would have desired it would have. So I don't see that happening because, Taliban has other problems today. One thing is that, they have promised, to be different. As of now, I don't see anything different, one thing. And in those scheme of things, and if they start nurturing the Al-Qaeda, and then the US has said that, we reserve the right to strike if any of our interests are, going to be impacted, because of kind of a Taliban takeover. So Al-Qaeda immediately, not really. ISIS will be the bigger threat.
Right, and when we talk about threats, so another big threat in terms of what the world is now actually witnessing, we saw that video also that I think came today or day before yesterday, that these Taliban terrorists, they all are geared up in US uniforms, and they are parading the Kabul airport with the US combat choppers being there, the fighters being there. So all that thing, so all of that asset that was basically for the Afghan military is now in the hands of Taliban. How dangerous it is, and how dangerous is that kind of a technology falling into the hands of terrorists? And of course, one of the congressmen in the US has also cautioned Joe Biden that he should look out that Taliban should not get a nuclear weapon from Pakistan.
See, I see. One thing is that it is a little surprising that they left behind so much of equipment and they didn't. They decided not to kind of destroy it. That is one thing. So they have got they've got access to plenty of equipment. They took control of the Black Hawk helicopters, the Super 29 Super Cano attack aircraft, mine-resistant Humvees, all these things. So that is precisely why, there was so much of criticism, which was there, saying that, this kind of hasty pullout was not, it was not anticipated, or rather it was not expected also. And now when I talk about these weapons, they said that, they have demilitarized, about 73 aircraft before they took out, all that is there. But there's a considerable number of, other weapons which are there with them. To what extent that the Taliban may use it is, one part. But, it could be sold to, rogue governments. It could be sold to, terror organizations. Because there is also one more fact is that, these weapons run into billions and billions of dollars. That is one thing. So, and Taliban needs money. Okay, so they are, still okay fighting with their, conventional arms and ammunition. But, the hands that it may go and fall into is what actually is the worry. That is one. And about Pakistan, providing nuclear weapons, I mean, I don't see that happening now because, there will be a lot of scrutiny from across the world. That is, one thing. But yeah, the kind of logistic support and the kind of, military backing that they give and, the way they will use the Taliban, to let groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed or Lashkar-e-Taiba go and regroup on their soil. This is a big, big concern, at least, if you look at it in terms of the India perspective of it.
Right. And when we talk about India's perspective, Vicky, so like as you mentioned, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and a few days before Jaish-e-Mohammed chief actually met the Taliban chief in Afghanistan. They had a talk, and preferably that what we can think of what might have been the talk is of setting up terror camps there in Afghanistan. So how, and of course, let's be very honest, there might be few recruits that they might that the Taliban will get from Afghan military, and they can also help who are actually trained by US military. So like maybe get a indirect training from the US military to all these terrorist outfits, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and of course the as we talk about the warfare that is still there. So how dangerous it is now for India, and how keenly Indian intelligence will be there with a Hawkeye view in Afghanistan?
Yeah, see, I mean, one thing I don't see happening, as we discussed earlier also, I don't see Taliban sending in their fighters into, Jammu Kashmir or any other part of India. One, okay, because number one point, they will stay clear. They've already said it's India's internal matter, but more importantly, Pakistan will not allow anyone other than its own proxies, that is, who, operate on their soil to go and fight. That is, one thing. And this meeting, of course, yes, now Pakistan, with, going through, I mean, a lot of, problems within the Financial Action Task Force now is only, and it has not taken the action that, has been desired, or what, action that is up to the mark, if I would say. So the problem, what happens is, then all these things, what happened, terror training camps, etc. When we carried out the Balakot strike, there was a big expose that there was such a big, camp that was, being run there only to, train Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists. And similarly, for the Lashkar-e-Taiba, other camps as well. Now, what happens is, I would see this, Jaish-e-Mohammed or a Lashkar-e-Taiba, using Afghanistan as a soil, as a terror launch pad, number one. Okay, one thing, as a terror launch pad. Because currently Taliban has nothing to lose. Even if they put under the FATF, there's nothing for them to lose. They're still, looking for legitimacy at the moment, which, the world has been, pretty slow to offer as of now. So, training camps, etc. The thing is, one thing is, if the agencies are chasing them, back in Pakistan, they could use Afghanistan as a safe terror haven. One thing, as a launch pad, etc. And another thing, to be more this one, is that the victory in which the way in which Taliban has come back, after literally holding out for 20 years, is something that could be used as a moral bolster, for these terror groups to start recruiting in J&K, because their moral is pretty down. Because if I have to give you a statistic, August 28th, beginning of this year until August 20th, the Indian security forces have actually gunned down 102 terrorists. Okay, and they have been very big commanders. So, and also one more thing, they tried to come out with their drones, etc. Now we have introduced the required, measures and the surveillance, this one. So the sightings have also come down. So, basically, when so many things are happening and, you're not getting your strike right, there's always the chance, within the locals or the younger lot, the kind of, they get demoralized, they only,
Right.
thrive on, attacks and, success and victories and things like that. So this could be one thing saying that, despite holding out for 20 years, it's been a victory of Islamic forces. That is the bigger danger for us, actually.
Right. And how do you think that they are going to recruit all these youngsters in terms of like Indian military is also running extensive programs in the valley in order to persuade the youngsters, the young Kashmiris to sway towards the Indian side. So how do you feel that that this kind of a victory, as you said, that Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba are going to portray it as a victory of Islam, and how Taliban basically fought out for 20 years, and at the end of the day they were able to defeat the Western powers and were able to capture Afghanistan once again. How do you see in the coming days, this is going to impact India and the security forces out there, and of course the intelligence that is there in Kashmir? What would be, you think there would be the next plan in terms of before all these, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba start recruiting people there?
See, I mean, while they would continue to try, I'm not saying that, we have no capabilities, to tackle it. We are very much on top of a game out there. One thing, we have so much of intelligence about, what they're trying to, this one. When these groups succeed is that, when we don't have the intelligence. So we are completely on guard. There is going to be absolutely no change in strategy as such. If there is a presence of terrorists, the first thing is going to be a cordon search operation. The first thing that they will continue to do is ask them to surrender, and if they don't and they start firing, that's when the encounter breaks out. So in terms of that, pretty much not much change in strategy. They will continue as it is, and the forces have seen a lot of success over the past 2 or 3 years. So that's one thing. It's just that, we should never let a guard down, to say that, I mean, we have it sorted out. So that is the whole thing, the thing is, it's a continuous process, security operations cannot, have one timeline or deadline or anything of that sort. It's a continuous process. That is one thing. They are going to use every tool at their disposal. They're going to use every tool at their disposal. Like exactly, Akash, the thing is, 9/11 attacks, when that happened, you could have seen the kind of recruitment that happened. Any part of the country, that attack was cited, saying that, if this group could go and hit down a United States of America, then anything is possible, that kind of thing. These, in the multiple investigating reports I have seen, the multiple dossiers that, you've gone through, you can always see, 9/11 has always been cited. So that will continue to happen. They still cite 9/11. It's not like they don't cite one. They still cite that. So they will continue to cite this. The thing is that they're going to show the kind of resistance that the Taliban showed, in staying on there, hanging out there for 20 years and still, managing to come back. Now, that will be definitely a narrative which will be used by not just Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed. It will be used by every other terror group across the world, one thing. But the thing is, if our intelligence is right and, our strategy is in place, which I'm saying it is now, as of now, then I don't think that issue is going to kind of get the desired traction that, a Jaish-e-Mohammed or a Lashkar-e-Taiba would be looking for.
Right, and we talk about like 9/11, and that was the main premise behind US going into Afghanistan and trying to get rid of Al Qaeda, and then of course in hindsight they also got rid of Taliban also. But now 20 years down the line, and now 9/11 is again going to come back. It's like going to be the 21st anniversary of that whole terror incident that took place. Do you think that Joe Biden will be able to save his face? Because people, he is definitely facing a lot of backlash in the US, like the way the withdrawal has happened, and of course, by the time they were withdrawing, they lost 13 of their soldiers in that suicide bomb attack outside the airport itself. Do you feel that there is no face saving for Joe Biden, and basically this whole thing could have been done in a much more systematic and a much more easier, simpler way?
easier, simpler, I don't know, Akash. I mean, because that operation is never easy or simple out there in Afghanistan. That is one. I mean, it's a war-torn country. People are only willing to fight day in and day out. That is one thing. It is going to be extremely difficult for him to come out of this because, currently, even if I sit and, try to rack my brains, I don't know what he can possibly do to make it better. That's one thing. Okay. So this is going to be part of his legacy, the messy withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, there is no, getting out of that, So what has happened has happened. One is the hasty withdrawal. The other thing, earlier on, I was writing something on, these Taliban, they're going on putting out those posters outside each one's house, surrender or die. Basically, these are basically the summons which they've issued to appear before a Taliban court, basically, one thing. Now, who are these people, Akash? The people who have, helped the US when they were there, one. Or, one more person who helped the UK military, build roads out there. It was his construction company which helped him build roads. All these people, who have been translators for the US, when they were negotiating, all these people, they've just left all of them in a lurch. I think there are over 250 people they've left out there. Now, and Taliban will hunt them down and, they'll decide on the sentence. And they said, if you don't turn up in court, we'll kill you. So it's a very, very tricky situation for them. You feel more bad, that, these are people who stood by you, for the past 20 years and you just left them in the lurch and gone. Because they have been to the airport. All of them have been to the airport. They were not able to get out of the airport because it was, it was chaotic out there. So they're back. Now, you never know whether they live or die or whatever. And US has just raised his hands and said, we have nothing to do with it at the moment. So all these are very, telling stories and telling images and telling pictures, which clearly show that, it was, I mean, I would say, sometimes, a ruthless pullout or something like that, because so many had to die because of that. It was very, very unplanned.
Right. And lastly, so the Central Command General there in the US has said that, now the military operations is over. Now the diplomatic channels will open with Taliban. Do you feel that there would be a sort of a diplomatic channel with Taliban, and will US going to recognize Taliban there in Afghanistan?
That's going to take some time. You have to, tread very, very carefully on that part. The very fact that they're not able to have any diplomatic talks with the Taliban in their own country, and they had to move everything, to Doha. That is one thing, because that is where the talks are going to happen.
Right.
That itself, I'd say, is a kind of a slow starter. But, there's one thing, Akash, always, not talking is also never a solution, Even, when we have disputes, etc., all that, every official or every, former official that, you talk to, they said, let whatever happen, but keep talking. Okay, because as long as you're talking, you're familiar at least. Because, when you have that, pin drop silence on each side, you don't know what the other one is thinking. So there's a lot of distrust that is going to be built up because of that. So talks, yes, they also, today, while they were walking the tarmac, the Talibs, when they were walking the tarmac, there was also a statement which came out on this, and we want diplomatic ties there with that one. It's just that, we've seen a very different version of them, 20 years back. So that trust factor, it'll take a little time, to build. So that's the thing. But trying to talk with them, opening up diplomatic channels is not only an option. I would say, US should be taking, everyone in the world should be taking that option, because that is the only way to, sort out an issue. It's only then you'll realize how honest they are about, wanting to run the country normally. And, when they come and say, we are not the old Taliban.
Right. Well, hopefully they are not the whole Taliban. And well, on that note, thank you very much, Vicky, for coming on the show and, talking to me. And definitely we're going to talk more about the 9/11 as it is coming, and, the 20 years of war that US did in Afghanistan. So we'll talk about it in the coming shows. But thank you very much for being there today.
Thanks, Akash. Thank you.
Subscribe to One India channel and never miss an update.